kind of rose pretty quickly yesterday to speak out about the card game comment. Is there anything further that will be done on that? Any kind of complaint lodge or anything of that nature?
Well, I think we'll likely file a protest and dissent letter, obviously pointing out race and gender on the House floor. Picking out one group of people against another is not appropriate, and we weren't appreciative of what she'd said, and we feel like that our job as leaders in Minnesota is to bring people together and not divide people, and so this kind of identity politics isn't helpful for us to work together and get things done. So disappointed that she has chosen not to apologize to the legislature and to as well as those she's offended at home, but we will be filing a letter.
And what's the practical effect of a letter like that?
Nothing. We put it in the journal, and it makes a statement. Several of our members will likely sign it, and it just makes a statement that we don't view this as appropriate language for leaders of the state of Minnesota, and we'll also be reminding people of our ethics policy, and we'll be putting our ethics code of conduct on every member's chair today as well to remind them of that we're expected to be held to a higher standard, and that we expect members to work together and represent the state of Minnesota as a whole.
Madam Leader, she was upset about people playing cards in the retiring room. Is that a proper activity? Is that something that is sanctioned during the session?
I think that what she didn't mention is there are members of both parties in the back, and there were men and women in the back. And a retiring room is something that's where members go to eat, and we're there several times. We're there for long hours, and that's always sort of been an off-limits area. People need to go back there to take phone calls and things like that so that you're not talking on the House floor. And I mean, this is something that's always been done there, and to point out one group of people and to make it seem as though it's one specific race and one specific gender, that was, and kind of imply that it was one specific party in the back is, it's just not something that we've talked about on the floor before. And I think that people know that when you're on the House floor for many, many hours on end, people are going to need to take a little break to eat, get a drink of water, take a phone call, and in some cases, rest a little bit. We have members of different ages, and it's been kind of off limits in the past. People know that that's where you go, and when you can't be quiet on the floor, you frequently hear the Speaker of the House saying, members, please take your discussions elsewhere. Well, one of the elsewhere is the retiring room.
So you view it more as a relaxation area during a session, and playing cards would be appropriate?
I would view it as a place where people do whatever they do that doesn't involve the House floor. So people need to eat. People need to go back there to get coffee, to get water, to take phone calls, to have legislative conversations that you shouldn't be having on the floor, because you're supposed to be, the speaker is supposed to be speaking on the floor. So when people need to talk with other legislators, that happens frequently. That's where we do some of our deal making. We have the opportunity, everybody's there. We have legislators of both sides, so people talk in the retiring room. So it's a multi-purpose room that's used, and that's something that reporters aren't allowed there, members of the Senate aren't allowed there. So it's just really, if people have guests, they're allowed back there. So it's a kind of a multi-purpose room, and again, just disappointed that the tone that was taken was not a tone of cooperation. It wasn't a tone of we need to work together to get things done. It was just sort of pitting one group of people and accusing them of not listening to another group of people. And I think that if you listen to the floor session, is it generally a problem that people don't always sit and pay attention to speeches? Well, yes, I think that happens, and that's why the Speaker frequently has to quiet the chamber. But to accuse one group of people for their race and gender, to say that they weren't listening because of another person's or group of persons' race and gender, doesn't really get us to where we need to be able to come to compromise and work together as a state.
Following up on Pat's question, were they actually playing cards back there, or was this just an expression you used about people sitting around having a card game?
I don't know what they were actually doing back there, because I was on the floor. I'm not sure what they were doing back there. And there's also several offices back there as well that people sometimes go into and use and make phone calls and things like that. So I don't know exactly what was going on, because I, of course, was on the floor paying attention to everything everyone was saying.
Can they hear the debate in there? Is there
There's
speakers and is there a
There is,
television that shows?
there's at least 2 TVs just in the main retiring room, as well as the audio is on in all of the staff offices, which members frequently use to have these, kind of meetings. Sometimes legislators will go into one of the back offices and, meet about their bills or, try to talk to other legislators about their bills as well. But it's full access in both the retiring room and in the back offices for being able to hear the session. Sometimes it's even better. We can even hear it in the restrooms. It's easier to hear actually than even on the floor. So.
Madam Leader, have you touched on this a little bit, but have you ever known a speech on the floor to change anybody's mind? I mean, is that just an exercise for the people at home? Can you ever remember changing?
I think I've made speeches that have changed. Well, maybe not, but. I don't know. I mean, I think the point of speaking is you're representing your constituents and your beliefs, and I can't say whether people's minds have been changed. We like to think that they do. We like to think that when we talk, we influence people and change minds, but the fact of the matter is it's very difficult when you've been on the floor for many, many hours to not have to run to the bathroom or not have to go somewhere else. And so the idea that people are sitting in their seats paying attention to every single second of every single speech is just very difficult to fulfill in real life.
Madam Leader, aside from the issues of protocol and diplomacy, the assertion is that white guys are not paying attention to this debate over protest, perhaps as much as female lawmakers. Do you disagree with that assertion?
I don't think that's true. I think that there were members of both parties and both genders back in the retiring room and listening to the debate. The debate had gone on for quite a while. I don't know if, part of it is that at some point there's not a lot of new issues. It's just new stories about how a certain thing impacts them. And so I don't think that's true. I think that both sides are guilty of not always paying attention to 100%. Both sides are guilty of using the retiring room. Both sides are guilty of going to the bathroom and eating lunch. So I don't really think that that's true, and I don't think it's right to accuse one group of people that they're not listening because of the gender or the race of another group. That's just not. We shouldn't be playing identity politics in the legislature. We should be working together and doing what's right for the state of Minnesota.
I do need to get the authors up to the floor for session. So.
Yes, thank you.